everyone, welcome once again to another video. This time we're going to be analyzing the first ever game of the first ever World Championship match in the history of chess. This game was played between Johannes Hermann Zukertort and Wilhelm Steinitz. Before going to the game, I wanted to give you guys some context about the match and why it was so important to the history of chess. So, this match was about the first player who wins 10 games, and if the match was tied 9-9, there would be another 8 games played until someone eventually won the title. This match was played in 1886. The first 5 games were played in New York, and the following games were played in St. Louis, Missouri. And it was so important because it was the first ever match on a championship title. So let's go right into it. Johannes Zukertort has white and Wilhelm Steinitz has black. Zukertort started with d4, the queen's pawn opening. Steinitz replied d5, one of the most common moves. And Zukertort plays the queen's gambit. Now, this is an interesting move. c6, this is called the slap defense. Some of you may be asking, why doesn't the black just takes the pawn? Well, this is possible, but after e3, there's a threat on this pawn, and if black's defends that, we just go a4, and now there is not any good way to defend this pawn because just play. If he plays c6, we just take, and if he takes, we play queen f3, and now the rook is under attack, and black is going to lose either one of his pieces, the bishop or the knight. Let's go. The only way to defend this rook is by playing, something like this. But after this, white is completely winning. So, let's go back to the game. On the game, Steinitz played c6, which is called the slap defense. And it is so interesting because, in the decline queen's gambit, which is the main line, there's a little problem for black because this bishop just gets trapped into his own pawn chain, and it is a little bit awkward to play. But in another example like this, the bishop can just develop by normal position without leaving the bishop trap. It is better to play this way. Now, Zukertort continues by playing e3, and now here comes the first interesting move. Like, following his idea, Steinitz develops his bishop in order to maybe later develop his knight, or once the bishop is out, he can simply support his center by playing e6 without having to trouble the two underdevelop the bishop. Now, Zukertort goes knight c3, developing his pieces, and after e6, supporting the center, Zukertort develops his other knight. Now, knight d7 is a very interesting move because, as you know, it is always better to develop pieces up to the center or not to the corner because, sorry. In other games, it is very common that people tend to develop his knight on this position, but it is not something good because you just don't develop your knight properly. The game continues knight b d7 and a3. It has the idea of b4 or even b5, pushing the pawn chain of black. And now is another interesting move, bishop d6. Now you may be asking, what happens if white plays c5, which was played on the game? But after bishop c7, this bishop has a very nice diagonal from c7 to h2, which is very useful in these schemes. Now, Zukertort continues with his idea of putting pressure on Steinitz center, and Steinitz strikes back on the center. Now, it is very interesting because you strike the center and you also take advantage on this pawn being defended by two pieces. Now, this is the first mistake of the game. It was better to take this pawn and just play something like this. It would have been better for black or and for white, sorry. But he plays bishop e2, which already is an advantage for black because what you want to do is develop your pieces in order to have an active position and not a passive position, which is what white has right here. But it is very interesting how this catalogates as a mistake. I would also play this move in this position, but the computers just don't like this move. Now bishop b2 is in accuracy. I think that's because now black can just close the center, and this bishop is trapped on under his own pawn chain. And now Zukertort tries to support some ideas with f3 to strike back on the center and also to open up this diagonal. But Steinitz prevents that immediately with h5, which has the idea of h4 and even h3, striking on the principal source of castle, and he prevents the another advantage, and even knight g4 or bishop g4 is uncomfortable, and that's why Zukertort played this move. Now, but Steinitz starts maneuvering with his knight. This is a very interesting move because it has the idea of going this way, but it can also go this way in order to go to g5, which is a very strong square. Now, a4. Zukertort continues with his idea of striking back on the queen side, and after knight g6, b5. He doesn't care about anything. And this is a very interesting move, knight g4. He's threatening this, for example. Now it would be a mistake to take this pawn because after taking this pawn, Steinitz could just take this and then go back, and the white king is pretty weak on this situation. Has too many pieces who can come to attack later, and even some ideas with g5 and g4. So that's why it is not comfortable to take on c6. Now, Zukertort played that move, which is kind of a bad move, I think, because you're just allowing to to give a check without and creating also weaknesses on your position. Like for example, if you play simply king f1 defending this pawn, I know it seems a little awkward because this rook would be stuck on his own side, but you don't have any weak squares like you can defend pretty comfortably. And even though it takes this that square for the knight can go here and support some ideas later with a5, and this is what I would play here. But the game continues this way, and Steinitz gives the check, and after the attack, Steinitz has already achieved what it would be a very interesting positional advantage. Let me explain. As you may know, once the king moves in on the first time, it cannot castle later. So this king will be stuck here the rest of the game, and this would be pretty important for the future moves. Now, this is a very interesting sacrifice in order to open lines. Now, you may be thinking, well, I can just take and it doesn't matter. But yes, now let's make a bit of a rewind. Black has two pawns. Oh, sorry. Black has two pawns for the knight, but white king is pretty weak. These two pawns of the castle cannot be replaced because the pawn can go anywhere, and this king is pretty weak. So this is one of the most common advantages that can be taken on this situation, and this is what will cause the the endgame to be hard to play for white because this is just the king is pretty weak. Now white tries to attack this bishop with king g2, but the bishop just retreats, and it is just so awkward to play with with white this situation. Now queen g1 is an interesting move. I would have played queen f3 in this situation. I think it's interesting, but attacking this and now after, for example, if you play bishop g6, you block this for your rook, and it would be pretty hard to attack on the future. But Steinitz played sorry, Zukertort played queen g1, which is a very bad mistake, a very fatal blunder because now with this move Steinitz is threatening to give a check and later take the win. For example, if you do something dumb, let's say this, for example, now you now black is simply winning because he plays here, and you have to keep this, and you can't take this because this would be a check, and black just would take the queen and win the game pretty easily. So let's go back into the game. Now, Zukertort played queen f1, which is one of the only move he had in order to still be defending his opponent. It is pretty awkward to play with, but Steinitz plays rook g6 either way, and after queen f2, there's just a lot of ideas for black to continue the attack. And now this move seems logical, but I don't know the why the engine says that is an inaccuracy because it has a very clear idea to give a check and white will not be able to take. But after taking this series of moves just brings us to this position. Now, if White traits here, it would be, for example, let's just say this. Now, this knight is pretty strong, is very strong on these situations because it cannot be expelled in any ways, and also is threatening this pawn hypothetically. Like for example, in some cases you can play like bishop d8 and bishop g5 in order to attack this pawn, and it would be very hard for white to defend. But Zukertort tries to trade some pieces in order to be more active, but they're just pretty late. He tries to make some moves with his knight, but there's just not any compensation. Now I want you guys to focus on this aspect of the game. You see, this bishop is what professional of chess or like grandmasters call the bad bishop, because this bishop is trapped on his own pawn chain, and in the other part, this bishop has this diagonal controlling this square. So I want you guys to take note of that difference between these two bishops. Now he tries to move, but there's just no way to get out of this. Now Steinitz attacks the queen, and after queen g2, now the infiltration starts. This is a very beautiful move. This is a very beautiful move. Now he's sacrificing the rook. Now let's just ask the engine what will happen if white takes here. Now some of you might be thinking it is best to take with the bishop, but no. The most important thing is to take with the pawn, and now this queen has to go here, and now you just have a pawn on the 7th rank, and it is awful for white. This would be a complete lost position. Now he goes queen f2, and this is a very beautiful move. So Zukertort tries to go around with his pieces in order to get something, but it is just too late. Now black takes the open the open line. This is a very completely lost position for white. So even though he tries to go away, now f5, it is a pretty weird move, because now in these cases you want to bring your pieces more actively, like for example like this, sacrificing in order to to go here, and now it is just being an awkward position with his this sacrifice. So let's just go back into the game. After f5, Zukertort played a5, completely desperately, and regardless some of Steinitz moves, I think this was a pretty interesting game. So let's see how this transforms into an endgame. He played f5 in order to play f4 later, and now he tries to recuperate with his pieces. If he takes here, this would be pretty awful, because now just the bishop gets in, and now it is just so awkward. Let's have in mind that king cannot go this way, so because the rook is controlling this, so this would be completely winning for black. Let's just jump back into the game. He tries to defend that, but the rook's just getting on the 7th rank, and it is awful for what to play. Now he tries to sacrifice. I don't know what the engine recommends here. Now that it is a move of the engine. So after this, it is just so hard to play, and now it is a completely winning position. I think In some cases, people tend to believe that if you have a winning position, you already won the game. But that's not the case. If you don't believe me, just watch my previous streams, which I have a lot of games where I'm completely winning, and I end up throwing the game into the garbage because I don't know the proper technique. And that's why I believe that it is so important for everyone to analyze the history of chess and analyze the players of the past to understand not only how to get an advantage on certain games, but also how to improve your technique. Now, I know the engine says that, but let's get right into it. If you play well in the game, he went king c3. Now, if I think this is a little awkward for black, for example, this would be also completely losing, but because he just takes back, so this is just don't take nothing. After king c3, just king e7. No, sorry, king e7, and now it is just some sort of technique this way. Now, sorry, alright. It is pretty. It is pretty hard to suggest moves for white on this position because even though he still has troops, the queen is pretty active. This pawn is very advanced, and it is just a completely winning position. Now, even though he tries to give some checks, but now there's just nothing. Now, this is an interesting trick. This is an interesting trick because if he takes here, now you have queen g3. So you have to be very careful in these scenarios. This would also be an advantage for black, but you always have to take notice on these moves because it could seem that he's just blundering the queen, the rook. Sorry, but after this, for example, if you go here, you have this, and now this would also be a win for black, but it would be a lot more harder. So you have to be very careful of not blundering these moves. So let's just go back into the game. And now after bishop f4, Zukertort resigned. Steinitz won the first game of the match, and it is just such an interesting game because it shows how to play properly on a lot of tiles. Now, white could play a lot better than he did. For example, if you go here, you're just mating two, queen b2 check, king d3, and just mate. So that's why he resigned. So I hope you guys learned something. I hope you guys had a great time. If you did, I would appreciate a like, a subscription, activate a notification, and I hope to see you guys on my next gameplay. Bye.